have to erase some things because of, the storage is not enough. According to Google, just 15 gigabytes. But anyways, I managed to free in some space so you can upload whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks God. So sorry, but I will check it by tonight. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I already closed this book. We're gonna start with the last 3 units. We have apparently 2.5. Yeah, 2.5 weeks. Our final exam will be the 9th of December. The 9th of December. So we still have time. Almost 3 weeks. Almost 3 weeks. Yeah. So we shouldn't be worried about that. So we start with this unit, over my dead body. Yeah. So again, we will be revising modal verbs of probability in the past, metaphors, idiomatic expressions about the body, stress intonation. There's a reading about amazing Vikings, writing, adding emphasis, yeah, things like that. So look quickly at this photo. What is it? What is it here?
This decoration is for art from Gothic church of Czech Republic. It's in the town of Kutna, something like that. I remember I saw a documentary on YouTube some time ago.
Some time ago. All right. Yeah, probably you're right. Do you think it's respectful to the dead? As Mexican, well, and the beginning of this month, what do you consider? Is it respectful to the dead people? I would say yes. Is it respectful? Do you think it's respectful?
I think that there is a mixture of belief between Christian and Hispanic beliefs. I don't know when begin one and one finish another one. It's for me. It's a big trouble. When I stay in Italy, someday I told my friends about the ofrendas, and all my classmates exclaimed, "Oh, that's terrible! How it's possible that you speak about that and all kinds of things?" And I was in shock. I can explain more, and I can say more about the dead and the ofrendas in Mexico. They didn't understand me.
Yeah, it's true. Some people consider as taboo, right? As taboo, like, wow, they are in shock, no? Because of the, cultural shock. But we have to respect everything, no? Here. Well, in life, I mean, especially cultural aspects. And yeah, the dead will not die completely until they are remembered by no one, said Mehmet Murat Ildan, something like that. So do you agree with them? Do you agree with him?
Yes, I'm agree with this expression.
Okay. Rabi Sarai, do you put ofrendas? Do you set ofrendas at home? Jessica, Monica, Elizabeth, do you set ofrendas at home? Not really?
Not really, teacher. My grandma is the one.
Oh, your grandma. Yeah, my mom does it for my grandparents and my father as well. Yeah, I like the Cempasúchil and the festivals and things like that. All right, guys, let's watch a video introduction of the unit 10.
In terms of our culture, welcome to Unit 10. This unit is all about the importance of historical discoveries and the links we can show between the past and present in terms of our culture, tools and lifestyles, and what we can learn about ourselves from the evidence we see today. Listen to people talking about their take on the importance of history in their lives today.
I know quite a lot about the history of the place I grew up. I was raised in a city called York, which is in the north of England, and it was a Roman city with a really rich history, and I guess I was surrounded by that as a child, and it's because of that I became really passionate about history and archaeology, and eventually went on to study it at university.
I grew up in a small village in the south of Scotland, which doesn't have an incredibly rich history. However, a local historian did write a book about it, and I read that as a teenager, and yeah, I thought it was really interesting, especially since it mentioned a lot of place names and even street names that I was really familiar with.
They originally come from Manchester, which is in the north of England, and we grew up in the valleys, so cotton was very important. So everywhere was massive cotton mills. And when I was growing up, it was closing down. So there was a lot of unemployment, but people lived there and had lived there for generations. So they stayed, but you could see the decline really quickly.
Well, where I grew up learning about my Māori culture, I didn't learn about that at school. I learned about that from my adult family, and it's an oral history traditions that we learned as we grew up. Yeah, very important where we came from, who we are as a people.
Local history. Well, I grew up in Highgate in London, and I suppose there was quite a lot of local history there because it's a very old village. It was still very much a village then. When we first moved there, it even had cobbled streets, so, you know, lovely old buildings.
I come from a very small town, and we always learned about it in school, and my grandparents had grown up in that same town, so I hear a lot of the stories from them too, which is a really different kind of history, so it's really interesting to learn it that way too.
Interestingly, we learned a lot about the Second World War, but now that we live in Berlin, it's very still very alive, the separation of Berlin, and so this history, funnily, is not really, or has not really been taught in school, as far as I remember. So that's a bit strange, or sad at least, because now it's really interesting to get to know so much history of Berlin now that we live there.
One place that I visited, which I found absolutely fascinating and which I'm hoping to go back to quite soon, is Crete. And Crete is absolutely jam-packed full of archaeological sites and remains which are really fascinating. And I really enjoy actually visiting places like that and establishing connections, I guess, between the present and the past.
Yeah, I visited some Roman ruins in Libya in North Africa, and that was really interesting for me because they were the most intact ruins I've ever seen. You could actually see the shapes of buildings and not just a heap of rocks that, you know, might have been a shop once upon a time. Yeah, and you could still see all the old surfaces like the marble and the sort of bricks underneath, and that was really interesting for me because it made it seem a lot more real.
I think perhaps close to us there's a place called Himmelbjerget, which actually means the sky mountain. It's 148 meters high, and it plays a big role in the history of democracy in Denmark. There were big gatherings of people. Lots of people met there 100 years ago and discussed democracy and women's rights. So that's a very interesting place I like to visit. Yeah.
Well, I'm an artist, a sculptor, and so visiting Italy for me has been, it's the most wonderful place. I absolutely love it.
I visited Munich, Germany, and that was really interesting. I learned that there's still like thousands of bombs underneath the city that have just been built on top of from World War II, which I thought was absolutely crazy to learn.
Yeah, I was, when I was traveling during that time, Angkor Wat in Cambodia was really present, is a present memory that I have that connected me really physically as well to the past, where I could really perceive how that must have been living in that area, and yeah, that was really impressive.
I spontaneously remember Peru, where I was on Machu Picchu, and that was really interesting to get that feeling in the nature, and that people in the past have been built so impressive monuments there within the nature and with their hands, and that was really impressive for me. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so those were some experiences. What about traveling other places where it reminds our history, either European or other kind of history, right? Well, we are gonna focus on modal verbs of probability in the past. No, before we're going to check this bar. All modal verbs can be used to express degrees of probability. Well, when we talk about modal verbs in past, that means that they are unreal situations that could have happened, could have been happened. Most of the times, or the majority of times, those are situations, actions, or things that did not happen, but you wish they were different, or they had been different, right? So it's all about deduction, probabilities. You guess most of the times. In this case, they are in present. For example, she must be very rich. That means it is kind of deduction. Because of her appearance, because that person she shows up. I must do my homework in that case. Well, in this case, yeah, it is deduction, probability, it's fine. I must do my homework is not. Yeah. Number 3, Sarai, can you read number 3, please?
They can't be at home. There are no lights on.
Yes or no? Probability or no? What do you think?
It's no.
Actually, it is. Yeah, probability or deduction. Next, Emiliano, I think
I think it's Jane, but I might be wrong. Is yes true?
yeah, Next, let's see. I can't.
I can't sleep because of the noise. Both?
Both. Well, actually, it's not. I can't sleep. Yeah, it is. It's not. Jessica. It's not Jessica Sanchez. You. Okay, Marco. You.
You should see a doctor. It's false.
Yeah, false. No. That's no
Jessica
probability.
tiene problemas con su internet. Me pidió que le avisara.
Okay, thank you. Number 7, Monica.
Yes, of course. Cheer up. Things could be worse. I
Yes or no?
think is right.
Yeah, it's right. Probabilities.
Excuse me, what's the mean cheer up?
Cheer up, relax, cheer up, or like smile. Another way to say smile, cheer up.
Okay,
Be happy. Be happy.
Be happy.
Well, Elizabeth, the train.
The train may be late due to bad weather. I think it's right.
Yeah, it's right. Exactly. Yeah, put all this in past. She must have, well, one rule of using modal verbs in past that we need or they need, have, must have been very rich, must have done, and the other, besides have, it is the past participle of the verb. Yeah, past participle of the verb. You know that the past participle of be is been, not was and were, because was and were, they are in just simple past. For example, I cannot say I must have did. I must have did. No, I must have done. They can have been. No, in that case, they can have been. I think it's then, but I might have been wrong. You should have seen a doctor.
10.1 Modal verbs in the past. 1.
She must have been very rich.
2.
I had to do my homework.
3.
They can't have been at home. There were no lights on.
4.
I thought that was Jane, but I might have been wrong.
5.
I couldn't sleep because of the noise.
6.
You should have seen a doctor.
7.
Cheer up, things could have been worse.
8.
The train may have been late due to bad weather.
Yep. So the rule of modal verbs in past. They must include have plus verb in past participle. It's a rule. Remember, all those were situation. It's in Spanish would be habría, hubiera, yeah, hubiera and habría. No, debía haber. No, sometimes debía haber. That's the translation for modal verbs in past. Okay, guys, so missing 500 years, one of the greatest mysteries of English history. Yeah, look at the picture that you've got over there. Yeah, As you can see, probably an important person in royal family or in history. Yeah. Let's read a bit of introduction. In August 2012, the skeleton of a 500-year-old man was discovered beneath a concealed car park, yeah, a public car park in Leicester, England. This find caused great excitement among archaeologists and historians. Why? Then we can use the modal verbs in past. Why? Because he might have been a duke, probably. Yeah, why not? He could have been killed in a battle, right? He must have belonged to a royal family. Okay. So those thoughts that I'm sharing with you are probabilities that could have passed in the past. All right, so we have, look at the pictures. Who was the man? How did he die? Why was he found in the car park? How old was when he died? What is the connection with the actor Benedict Cumberbatch? So you have there some ideas. He must have been someone important. It might have been Shakespeare. He could have died of, or he could have been killed. The actor may be interested in history. Okay. So let's focus on this. Yeah, this is the guy, Benedict Cumberbatch. If you don't recognize it, he works for Marvel. Now with this new trailer that was dropped yesterday, Spider-Man Far From Home. He's this guy that I don't remember, this magician.
He's Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange, that's right. Yeah. He's a really good actor. So we're gonna listen to two friends talking about this unknown man that was discovered beneath a car park. What are the answers to the questions? Number one, were your predictions correct? So listen to this audio.
10.2 The King in the Car Park.
How was the theatre last night? What did you see?
We saw Shakespeare, Richard III. It was fantastic. Fabulous acting. You know, a horse, my kingdom for...
Yes, thank you, I've heard that. Was Richard III the king when Shakespeare was writing then?
No. Shakespeare was born 100 years after Richard, in the 16th century, when Elizabeth I was queen. The thing is, I'd never seen this play before, but I've been fascinated by Richard III ever since they found his body a few years ago.
Really? Was it lost?
It was never found. Nobody knew where he was buried. It was a big mystery, and then, in 2012, they found him. Well, not his body exactly, his skeleton, under a car park in Leicester.
Beneath a car park? You're kidding me. So, King Richard III could have died while parking his horse?
Ha, not funny. No, seriously, they say the car park must have been built on what was once a church graveyard.
Yeah, but how do they know the skeleton is Richard III?
Well, they know he was killed in 1485 in a battle near Leicester, the Battle of Bosworth Field, and tests showed that the skeleton must have died around that time from battle wounds, and that he must have been in his late 20s or 30s.
So Richard was quite young when he died?
Yeah, he was.
Poor guy.
Also, this skeleton had a deformed spine. He would have been a hunchback.
And was Richard a hunchback?
So they say. They can tell a lot from a skeleton these days, and this one was in really good condition, except that the feet were missing.
How come the feet were missing?
Oh, they say builders might have chopped them off in the 16th century. Anyway, DNA tests with members of the current royal family proved that this skeleton had royal blood.
Clever stuff.
Yeah. They also found some people in Canada who are his descendants, and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch, the actor who plays Sherlock Holmes? I bet he was surprised.
Yeah. He actually read a poem at the funeral. Must be amazing to learn you've got royal ancestors.
So there was a proper funeral?
Yeah. Richard was finally buried in Leicester Cathedral. Thousands of people came from all over the world.
That's quite a story. Was there ever a Richard IV?
No, Richard III was the last of the Richards. But who knows? There might be a fourth one day.
Okay. Richard IV, Richard III, no? Okay, so these guys discuss some ideas of this skeleton that was found there. We have some questions. When did Richard die? What was he doing when he died? Obviously, all of those thoughts are probabilities in the past. Some things that could have, situations that could have happened in that moment. And so these guys are just discussing and guessing what might have been, what might have been. So they're using modal verbs, guys. So what you need to do is to listen carefully. Well, it's suggested, listen carefully and answer the questions. Just remember that you need to put them in past, no? For example, when did Richard die? He must have died in the 15th century. No, you have to follow the rule of the modal verb in past, like the examples that you have on the left side. He must have been someone. It might have been Shakespeare. He could have died. So I am putting here modal verb in past. Those have. You will never conjugate have. You will never conjugate have. Past participle of the verb. Yeah. So pay attention to this audio and write the answers. Change them into past. Probabilities in the past. Probabilities in the past. All right. One more time.
10.2. The King in the Car Park.
How was the theatre last night? What did you see?
We saw Shakespeare, Richard III. It was fantastic. Fabulous acting. You know, a horse, my kingdom for...
Yes, thank you, I've heard that. Was Richard III the king when Shakespeare was writing then?
No. Shakespeare was born 100 years after Richard, in the 16th century, when Elizabeth I was queen. The thing is, I'd never seen this play before, but I've been fascinated by Richard III ever since they found his body a few years ago.
Really? Was it lost?
It was never found. Nobody knew where he was buried. It was a big mystery, and then, in 2012, they found him. Well, not his body exactly, his skeleton, under a car park in Leicester.
Beneath a car park? You're kidding me. So, King Richard III could have died while parking his horse?
Ha, not funny. No, seriously, they say the car park must have been built on what was once a church graveyard.
Yeah, but how do they know the skeleton is Richard III?
Well, They know he was killed in 1485 in a battle near Leicester, the Battle of Bosworth Field, and tests showed that the skeleton must have died around that time from battle wounds and that he must have been in his late 20s or 30s.
So Richard was quite young when he died?
Yeah, he was.
Poor guy.
Also, this skeleton had a deformed spine. He would have been a hunchback.
And was Richard a hunchback?
So they say. They can tell a lot from a skeleton these days, and this one was in really good condition, except that the feet were missing.
How come the feet were missing?
Oh, they say builders might have chopped them off in the 16th century. Anyway, DNA tests with members of the current royal family proved that this skeleton had royal blood.
Clever stuff.
Yeah. They also found some people in Canada who are his descendants, and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch, the actor who plays Sherlock Holmes? I bet he was surprised.
Yeah. He actually read a poem at the funeral. It must be amazing to learn you've got royal ancestors.
So there was a proper funeral?
Yeah. Richard was finally buried in Leicester Cathedral. Thousands of people came from all over the world.
That's quite a story. Was there ever a Richard IV?
No, Richard III was the last of the Richards. But who knows? There might be a fourth one day.
Okay, one last time? Or is that okay, Peter?
Yes, please.
One last time. This is not going to be the complete conversation, only the questions and answers that you have there. Okay, I just wrote some formula, some structure for the modal verbs in past, no? Modal verbs in past plus have plus the past participle verb, no? That's one way. The other ways are like that: have been plus the verb in ing, or have been plus the past participle verb. All right. So one last time.
10.3. What do we know about Richard III? 1,
When did Richard die?
He must have died in the 15th century.
2,
What was he doing when he died?
He could have been riding a horse. He must have been fighting in a battle.
3,
Who was he fighting in the battle?
He might have been fighting Henry VII. He can't have been fighting Elizabeth I.
4,
Was he buried in the car park?
He can't have been buried in the car park. It wouldn't have been a car park when he was killed.
5,
How old was he when he died?
He may have been 32 or 33. He can't have been as old as 40.
6,
What did they learn from his deformed spine?
They learned that he could have been a hunchback.
7,
Why were his feet missing?
They might have been cut off by builders in the 16th century.
8,
Did the Canadian people know they were related?
They can't have had any idea.
9,
How did Benedict Cumberbatch feel about the discovery?
He must have been very surprised.
Okay. Ready? Check answers. Let's check answers then. These are the answers, guys. He must have died in the 15th century. What was he doing when he died? He could have been riding a horse. So indeed, we can add ing form here. He could have been riding a horse. He must have been fighting in a battle. Remember, all those are suppositions in the past. Supposition, probabilities that might have happened. Who was fighting in the battle? He might have been Henry IV. He can have been fighting Elizabeth I. Was he buried in the car park? He can have been buried. In that case, you can add passive voice. Yeah, passive voice as well. He can have been in the car park. It wouldn't have been a car park when he was killed. How old was he when he died? He may have been 32 or 33. he can have been as old as 40. Yeah. What did they learn from his deformed spine? Deformed spine. They learned that he could have been a hunchback. Jorobado, hunchback. Yeah, hunchback. Remember, this part is the hunch. Why were his feet missing? They might have been cut off, yeah, in the 16th century. Did the Canadian people know they were related? They can have had an idea. They can have had an idea. How did Benedict Cumberbatch feel about this discovery? He must have been very surprised. No, he must have been very surprised. So our main topic for these days are going to be suppositions in the past, probabilities that might have happened. No, this is our main topic. So if I ask you about this photo, obviously the person, it was a person that imagine that it was found in Mexico. So what can you say? Imagine that I told you this skeleton, these parts, the skulls, maybe in the city center. So I can say he might have been an you can say an Aztec. I think it's Aztec like that. I'm not sure. Might have been an Aztec. Probably he could have been murdered by Spaniards. Yeah, so all those are probabilities. Yeah. He may have been well, he might have just been hunting. All right, so tomorrow I explain everything about modal verbs in past, okay? So if you want to check, if you want to have a read, yeah, it's on page 162. Yeah, 162. So you can read in advance. Yep, but tomorrow I'll explain about past modal verbs. Okay, guys? Thank you very much. Enjoy the day, enjoy the afternoon. I will see you.